Hey, my name's Elizabeth Wanning.
I'm Ken Williams.
We're the co-founders of Changed Movement, and both of us have come out of LGBTQ.
Yes, we want to let you know about the Equality Act today. The Equality Act might sound like it's a wonderful thing because who doesn't want equality for everyone? It specifically is aimed at allegedly squashing any discrimination against LGBTQ people. But there are a lot of other things hidden in the bill that make it a bill that we definitely should oppose. We want to make sure that you understand what those are.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the religious freedom aspect of the Equality Act, but we want you to know that's not the only problem of the Equality Act. But so how is it impacting religious freedom? Just as a starter, the Equality Act specifically removes RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And so by doing that, it allows the government into the church. We talk a lot about separation of church and state. Removing RFRA in this bill allows the government to come into any place of worship and dictate how churches convey their beliefs, particularly in the realm of LGBT and how people experience their faith. And so it's a very, very invasive move by the government to remove that.
This part you probably won't even believe. You probably have to go research it to believe me, but this would be the first example I know where the government actually steps into my life, into your life potentially, and says, I'm going to determine what conscience you're going to have going forward. I'm going to determine what counseling you can or cannot get as an adult. So if I have a conviction, so for me, I had same-sex attraction. That was my only sexual attraction as a child. But it did not feel like the truth of my life. It felt like something that was in the way of who I was, not who I was. So I got 5 years of Christian counseling and moved on. And I've been married to my wife now for almost 15 years. That kind of counseling that I got would become illegal. That would be considered discrimination. So counselors, possibly even, ministers or counselors at a church would not be able to offer a way forward out of an LGBTQ life if that's what the person himself or the 45-year-old female wanted. So examples, like we meet people all the time who, I met someone not that long ago that is in his 50s, had never dealt with same-sex attraction before, and is now experiencing that. That person would not be able to get any counseling to help him deal with that so he could stay in his marriage to his wife. Things like that. So the government comes in and says, no, these are your choices for sexuality. We are mandating these choices, and all fluidity must head in the direction of LGBTQ.
It's crazy. On top of that, you probably heard a little bit about how this bill impacts women's sports. So last spring, there was a Supreme Court decision, the Bostock case, which essentially redefined the meaning of the word sex in U.S. law to incorporate gender identity or sexual orientation. And so H.R. 5 reaffirms that. And the implications of that are that places where women are protected, that line gets blurred. So a biological man, a transgender woman, will now be able to come into places that before were protected spaces for women, like women's shelters or women's prisons, women's sports, obviously, like I already said, or even beyond that. We don't know what it will do in terms of, say, co-ed dorm units or universities where they have single sex living units. We don't know how that will be impacted through this law, but it certainly will be.
It also erases the line effectively between male and female, and in such ways that would even impact science. So, in an effort to not discriminate, then now how are they going to do scientific studies where it's maybe a female issue? It's like where they're testing a drug or the effects of a drug on females. Well, there could easily be a bunch of men now that are identifying as females that would be included in that study, because the law is erasing just natural law, actual biological facts. There are trillions of nucleated cells in your body alone. In one person's body, there are trillions of cells, each carrying the chromosomal reality that I am either male or female. So it denies all of that biology, just facts, science. And so how are we going to make decisions as a society or build anything or communicate accurately or truthfully if we can't even agree as to whether something is true or not as far as a male or a female? It puts us on a very slippery slope for other legislation going forward.
Not just that, just even how our culture thinks about
Yes.
gender differences will be impacted by
Uh-huh.
this bill, even if not through legalities or legislation. It paves the way for people to be questioning what it means to be a woman or what it means to be a man.
Or what we teach children.
Well,
If that,
particularly,
yeah.
a little known fact in the bill is how it addresses abortion. So there's there are restrictions in the bill about removing the Hyde Amendment. So the Hyde Amendment um, restricts federal funding to abortion providers. And so this bill removes those restrictions so that federal funding can go fully to abortion or to other surgeries like transgender surgeries. Um, so most people wouldn't think of the Equality Act in terms of abortion, but
Mhm.
certainly it is impacting.
Yeah. So in the case of doctors, or even parents, if you have a conscience about sexuality or sexual identity, and you no longer are able to stand on that belief or that conscience, you wouldn't be able to make decisions about whether or not to prescribe, if you're a doctor, whether or not to prescribe the puberty blockers or things like that to someone who is wanting to change their sex. Um, that no longer is an option because that would be considered discriminating against your patient. When in reality, if you're a doctor that cares about the long-term well-being of this person, you're saying, hey, you're only 13 years old. I don't want to give you any puberty blockers. I want you to make this decision when you're 20. That you don't have that right anymore because that's discrimination. So, or parents, certainly foster parents could come under fire because if you're discriminating, then you could be sued for wanting your child to wait. Things like that. It's just this is a very something that we really need everyone to stand up and speak out against.
Yeah. So what can you do? We're asking that today you would contact your U.S. Senator. You can go to our website, changed movement/take action, and get our talking points on the Equality Act and a link to follow where you can notify your senator. And that's just calling that senator's office or sending them an email telling them that you oppose the Equality Act. The bill has already passed out of the House of Representatives into the Senate. And so this is a pending bill. It's imminent. There are discussions already going forward. And so we don't know how quickly it will pass.
Yeah, so please go to our website today and contact your senator. We need everyone's help.